at the time I was still working in the accountancy side, so I was still producing annual accounts, working with organisations to independently examine their accounts, as well as running the payroll bureau, because it was just growing. But there came a moment in time where I realised that to stay up to date with accountancy obligations and to stay up to date with payroll, I needed to make a choice which I was going to work with. And my choice with payroll, there was no ifs and buts and maybes. The biggest challenge at that point was persuading my boss, who, like so many, have had the belief that, well, payroll's a doddle, payroll's easy, it's just pushing buttons on a computer. You don't need to stay up to date. Quite the opposite. So that was about the mid-90s. One of the biggest challenges was, and I came across it quite by accident in one of the AAT magazines, was an advert for the British Payroll Managers Association. And I thought, oh, there's a professional body for payroll professionals. Yeah. So I did some checking and found out that there was a qualification that I could apply for, which was the diploma in payroll management. So I spoke to my boss and said, I would really very much like to do the diploma in payroll management. And you can imagine I had a bit of a battle on my hands. So for a couple of years, I put together business case after business case after business case. And finally, after about the third year, I was given approval to do it was the IBPM back then, payroll diploma. So I studied for that. IR35, off payroll working reforms. There was a consultation that talked about, it had been rolled out to the public sector. So the next consultation was, shall we roll it out to the private sector? Which was inevitable, it was going to happen. But we worked together with the CIPD to consult with our members and put together a written response. And the point we were making was that actually to roll it out to small engagers wouldn't be effective. It's effectively transferring the obligation from one small organisation to another small organisation, and the savings wouldn't be achieved. And obviously we were pleased to see when the consultation response came back from government, the decision had been made not to expand to include small employers. But we weren't alone in saying that. All of this is always a collaboration with other stakeholders and interested parties as well. Well, the gender pay gap, is a big challenge, and it's a big challenge worldwide. This isn't just a UK challenge. And actually the legislation that was brought in by the UK government was really kind of leading the way in trying to address a very complicated problem by requiring employers to report their gender pay gap. So gender pay gap is not about equal pay. It's wider than that, and there is more to it than that. Now, unfortunately, what's got in the way is a pandemic. So what we've already had, out of the 4 years that this has been running, we've had 1 year last year where the mandatory reporting was removed because of the pandemic. At the moment, there is strong rumour that it will be lifted again this year. As a result of the pandemic and the fact that so many employees have been furloughed, and therefore that would distort the figures this year. And there's a lot of validity to that argument. But in order to reduce the gender pay gap, it isn't just about pay. There's also many different elements to that. One of which is that flexible working. And so actually the greater move to home working, although it's been made compulsory as a result of the pandemic, actually could potentially improve the situation. But I think there are so many different elements to this. It isn't as simple as saying oh, home working will help or home working won't help. At the moment, a lot of people are working from home, so everybody's on an equal footing. We went into the pandemic with a profession who didn't have any spare capacity. And then we loaded onto them, the obligation to deal with the calculations for the coronavirus job retention scheme, furlough, flexible furlough. So, the different rates, different ways of dealing with it. So I know for a fact that in 2020 we lost a lot of good payroll professionals. We in my previous job we met we arranged for a think tank roundtable to talk to our members, to see, not to bring them together with government officials as we would normally do, but just to talk to them and say, how are you getting on? Because we in the policy team knew how hard it was, and we knew anecdotally that it was quite hard, but we actually hadn't spoken directly to members about this subject. So we put out an invitation to attend, a 2-hour Teams meeting. Not only did we fill that one Teams meeting, think tank, we booked another one, and then we booked another one, and we still had a full waiting list. The response from members was so intense. Everybody wanted to share their experiences, and very few payroll professionals have not been impacted by the coronavirus job retention scheme. I think that's probably one of the best tips I could have, is don't be afraid to show your worth. It isn't just a numbers thing. It isn't just pushing buttons. What you do is important, because if you weren't doing it, then people wouldn't work. Simple as that.